email marketing is probably one of the most powerful ways to build connection. And it's probably one of the best places to build connection content. You can do it with social media as well, but your email should be largely about building a connection with your audience. That connection is an important piece of building up this kind of know, like, and trust factor so people will want to buy from you versus someone else. Welcome to the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast, where being a badass has less to do with what you wear and what music you listen to, and everything to do with whether you've got the thriving online business of your dreams. I'm your renegade thinking Harvard Law grad turned online entrepreneur host, Bobby Klink. In my years building my thriving business, the most important lesson I've learned is that being a badass online marketer isn't about secret strategies or ninja tactics. It's about doing the basic stuff right and showing the F up. So each week here on the show, you'll get clear, easy to execute guidance on how to build your online business and a swift kick in the ass or two to make sure you're getting it done. Hey there, welcome to episode 215 of the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Klink, and I'm excited for today's show because we're talking about one of my favorite subjects. Well, first of all, we're continuing our journey through the inbound journey. This is kind of a months-long series we're doing about the different components about building an inbound marketing strategy as kind of someone building a brand or a business based upon our knowledge and expertise. And today, we are starting kind of our journey through one of my favorite topics, which is email marketing. Now, if you know me, you know that one of the things that I kind of got known for pretty quickly in the online world was writing great emails. And so this is something I've been passionate about for a while. I'm writing a book about it. I have a course about it. Even before I introduced BOMU, I had a course about email marketing. So this is something I care about. But it's also something I care about because it's an integral part of the inbound journey. In a lot of ways, it is kind of the perfect example of inbound marketing. Because if you think about it, I don't send an email to someone until they have affirmatively raised their hand and said, Bobby, I want you to send me information. I want you to communicate with me. And that's how we should be thinking about email marketing. So in some sense, it is the moment. It is the particular channel that we have where we are only reaching that group of people who has opted in to get our information. And so because of that, it's the quintessential example of inbound marketing. Now, I also think it's one of the most powerful channels we have because we have a direct link into our people's inboxes. We're not reliant upon, we're not reliant upon an algorithm or something else that might get in our way and prevent our message from reaching our people. So that's another reason why I'm passionate about email. Now, I'm not going to tell you that it's the best way to communicate or that all you need is email, because that's not true. But it is an important part of the journey. So that's why I'm passionate about it. Now, to get the most out of your email marketing, though, you need to make sure that you're doing it the right way. And so that's what we're going to be talking about in this series, where we're talking about the email piece of inbound marketing. To give you a bit of a preview, we're going to have 3 podcast episodes about email marketing that is part of this series. Today's episode, we're kind of setting the framework. Where does email fit in the journey of inbound marketing, and how do you need to approach it generally? And how do you need to be thinking about email as a strategy? So that's kind of what we're covering today. Then in the next episode, the next 2 episodes, we're going to talk about particular ways you're going to use email. So in the next episode, we're talking about using email to connect with your audience. And then after that, in the last episode in the series, we're going to talk about selling with email. So that's kind of the journey we're going to go on here with these podcast episodes that are about email. Now, before we dive into the content today, if you like what you're hearing here about email marketing, I would love for you to join Badass Online Marketing University, BOMU. as I mentioned, the first course that I ever really created was about email. And it used to be a paid course. It's called Badass Email Marketing, but now we added it into BOMU. It's totally free when you join BOMU, which is also totally free. You can get access to my email marketing course. You can dig into the stuff we're talking about and learn more about the how-to and kind of really the nitty-gritty of getting this work done. So you can sign up for BOMU by heading over to bobbyklink.com/BOMU. That's BOMU. bobbyklink.com/BOMU. You can sign up, get access to my email course, and also the other marketing courses that are in BOMU. Now, with that, let's dive into today's episode. Now, I'm going to give you a bit of a preview of what we're going to talk about before I dive in. So we're going to talk really kind of about three big points. One is we're going to talk about where does email marketing fit into the overall inbound marketing journey. After that, we're going to talk about why you need to think of email itself as a journey and not just kind of a destination or an endpoint. And then finally, we're going to talk about how you need to approach email marketing and kind of how you think about what you're writing. And, the hint is you should think about it as if you're writing to a friend, not as something where you're going to be stiff or something else. So those are kind of the big pieces we're going to talk about in this episode. Let's start with the first piece, which is where does email marketing fit into the overall inbound marketing journey? Now, before we kind of talk about this and where I believe it fits in, traditionally, if you follow kind of traditional digital marketing strategists who are talking to a wide array of people, mainly product brands and kind of other people like that who are selling, a product, not themselves, not their knowledge, they would tell you that email marketing is a closing channel. In other words, it's a conversion channel. It's a way to make sales. That has traditionally been how people have thought about email marketing. Now, in our space of knowledge brands, people selling expertise, that idea was kind of carried over because the people who traditionally taught email marketing were people who came from a very conversion-focused background. You had a couple of groups of people who tended to teach email marketing. First was conversion copywriters, people who, built an expertise writing copy to convert. In other words, to get people to buy. And that is a very particular skill. So, for them, kind of like, there's the old adage that, to a person with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Well, it's kind of like that with conversion copywriters. To conversion copywriters, everything looks like a chance to get a conversion of some sort or another. So from their mindset, they were always thinking, well, how do we get someone to take action? How do we get someone to do something? Now, sometimes it was literally making money, but other times it's get them to click or do something. But it was this very kind of transactional focus. And then the other group of people who tended to teach email marketing in kind of this online space we live in were funnel strategists, people who, again, are very focused on direct response marketing, as in, I'm going to put this and then they're going to, step one and then they're going to go to step two and then step three, et cetera. And it's this very sequential, all about getting people to do the next thing. And as funnel strategists, again, a lot of these people's mindset is, hey, I just want to get people to buy. So that's why I have upsell. And they're using email as part of that journey. So again, to them, it's all about selling. What I'll tell you is that that's a mistake. If we approached email marketing simply as a closing channel, simply as a way to sell, we're making a mistake. Email fits into really two big parts of the inbound marketing journey. And one of them, as you'll sense, is something that's really kind of specific to us as knowledge brands. Now, you could also think there's a third category where it would fit in. But if you'll remember, back in episode 211, when I talked about inbound marketing, kind of gave the beginning framework, I talked about 5 kinds of content. There's awareness content, thought leadership content, connection content, consideration content, and conversion content. What I'll tell you is that email marketing can fit and can work for all of those last 3. Now, generally, you're not going to be using email marketing as thought leadership or awareness content because the awareness and thought leadership content largely is stuff that's happening with your front-facing content, with your content strategy, your blog, your podcast, your YouTube show. And that's the role that fits in. Email marketing is after someone has said, okay, I know about my problem. I know what I'm looking at. And you know what? You seem like someone who might have an answer. You might be the person who can really kind of help me on this journey. So that means they're already aware of their problem and they're already starting to see you as a thought leader. They've raised their hand and said, I want you to talk to me. So you should be using email marketing to continue the journey from that point through the point of them potentially buying from you. Now, also, to be clear, email marketing is also important for retention, like how you talk to people who've already bought from you, etc. But that's not going to be what we're going to focus on in this series because we're really kind of talking about this initial phase here. So where kind of in that, when you think about it, what I'm going to suggest to you is that email marketing is probably one of the most powerful ways to build connection. And it's probably one of the best places to build connection content. You can do it with social media as well, but your email should be largely about building a connection with your audience. That connection is an important piece of building up this kind of know, like, and trust factor so people will want to buy from you versus someone else. Now, that's also for us a large part of the consideration piece is we're going to use email marketing so that they're kind of considering us versus our competitors and deciding do they like us versus them, et cetera. And that's kind of all part and parcel of this kind of connection piece. So that's the first role that email can play. And if you think about it, that's going to require you to not view email simply as a transactional medium. And it's going to be something where you think about it, this is why we're different from product brands, right? In our world, people deciding that they know, like, and trust us as people, us as the guide on this particular area is hugely important. Not the case with a clothes brand. I mean, again, for me, it's like, well, hey, Old Navy, they're running a sale. Cool. Okay. Oh, I can get 50% off. Or I can get that. Okay. That might make me buy. I don't need to feel connected with Old Navy to buy their clothes, for example. And so this is why there is this shift that we need to make. So that's the one role that our email can play is building that connection. The other place is conversion, right? I mean, it still plays the role of helping us convert our leads into buyers because you're going to use email marketing as part of any promotion you do, whether it's kind of a launch-based event or just a short promotional period. Your email is a great way to do that because that's where you can talk to people who are already warm, who are already connected to you, who've already done those first levels, first kind of steps in the inbound journey and are at a point that they are ready to potentially buy. So you can reach them very directly and very kind of in that sense of knowing that they're already a few steps into the journey and they're not way back at the awareness stage. So those are the general places where email marketing is going to fit. Now, what I want to talk about quickly before we shift into thinking of email itself as a journey is the concept that you should think of email marketing as just another way to market to your audience. And I've talked about this in various places. I don't know that I have a specific episode on the podcast, but I've talked about how marketing and selling are different. They're not the same. I had an episode that was part of the Serve First Way, which was a series we did before, and we'll drop a link in the show notes where I talked about it's about marketing over selling. And it's an important thing to understand. The word marketing in the online world is often used mistakenly to mean either selling or just direct response marketing. Just, I'm going to put a message out and try to get you to respond directly. Marketing is much broader than that. Marketing ultimately is about creating the right product and then delivering the right message to the right person at the right time. And email marketing is just another way of doing that. And so we should think about that. And we should understand that email is something that shouldn't be about just one piece, just selling, just direct response. No, it should be a broader concept where we think about, hey, how do I want to market Okay, great. I figured that out. Now, how does email fit into that journey? And so I want to give you that sense to think about. Now, another thing I want to briefly touch on here is to think through why, in my belief at least, email marketing is actually going to have a resurgence, because we have a lot of things happening in the online world these days that I think are going to make it much harder for online marketers to do the kind of direct response marketing that they have been doing up to this point. Over the last, 5 to 10 years, much of the online marketing world has been built around this notion that I can tailor a message to a particular person or a particular type of person online based on their interests and deliver them a message through advertising. They're cold. They're not in my world yet, but I can deliver them the right message based upon, factors that these companies have collected about them to get them the right message, so then they'll get into my funnel and buy quickly. This has been the notion of the direct response revolution and much of what's taught in the online world about getting cold leads and converting them to buyers. What I'm going to tell you is we are in a phase where there is a resurgence of interest in privacy. You could say it started with GDPR back in 2018, where privacy and kind of all this private information and processing of private information became a thing that marketers had to think about, but it's evolved since then. You've had Firefox and Safari, for example, don't allow what are called third-party cookies, which make it harder to do tracking for advertising based upon interests. Google, by the way, Chrome in 2022 is phasing out third-party cookies, which will do the same kind of thing, meaning that you can't do advertising with outside companies based upon them tracking things that are happening over a broad range of websites. So that's going to go away as well. We had the iOS update recently where Apple is making it harder for you to track people who are using Apple devices. So again, the same kind of thing is happening there, where our ability to target advertising, so target outbound marketing or direct response marketing to cold audiences, is going to go away. Now, it's not going to go away entirely. I'm not saying that the sky is falling, but our ability to really hyper target things like people have gotten used to doing, I think, is going to shift. Now, who knows where it's going to be 2 years from now? But what I do know is that if you have people on your email list, and if you are tracking them, if you're segmenting them, if you're seeing what they're doing and kind of doing the work behind the scenes, your email list will remain a place where you can deliver the right message to the right person at the right time. Now, Apple, again, has thrown a little bit of a wrench in this because they've announced that they are going to make it impossible for people to track opens on for anyone who is opening their email on an Apple device using an Apple Mail app, which is a large percentage. It's over 50%. I think it's over 60% of tracked opens are on either an iPhone, Mail, the Mail on the built-in Macs, and then Mail on iPad. So that's going to create a problem. We're not going to be able to do message targeting based on opens, but we can still target messages based on people who click on things, on people who take certain actions, who respond. We can do a lot of that targeting still. And so our ability to send those messages and kind of do this very specific thing of finding, okay, what is this person interested in, is something that our email list gives us the ability to do that we might not have elsewhere. So again, I think this is going to become a more important part of the inbound journey, which is funny. I mean, we're going back to old ways of doing things in many ways as privacy becomes a more important consideration for people. So that's kind of this intro that I wanted to talk about. Now we're going to move to the next section, which is thinking of email marketing itself as a journey, not as a destination. And this really kind of is one of the big mistakes that people make. They think of email as a way to sell. And so, they use email just like either to try to hit people right away with sales, if they're using kind of a funnel strategy with upsells and all that. Now, I will use limited bits of that for low priced options. But my belief is that treating email from that perspective as a knowledge brand is counterproductive. And here's why. If you people sign up for your list and immediately you're just trying to sell. So, if you have an immediate one-time offer that's cheap and then there's an upsell and all that. So people are just getting email after email from you, trying to get them to buy from you right when they join your list. One of two things is going to happen. Now, some people will convert and more people will buy those early products if you do that. If you hit them hard with emails that are sales focused at the beginning, no question, you will make more sales on your front end if you do that than if you don't. The trouble is that what tends to happen if you use that approach is, yes, you get some more sales up front, but you piss everybody else off. Because I don't know about you, but if I get on someone's list and they're just trying to get me to buy, and that's what I get, and that's all I get for a week or 2 weeks, guess what? I'm out. Because that says to me that you, as the person involved, you really only care about selling to me. You don't think of me as a person. You're not there to serve me. You're there to serve yourself. And so if I don't immediately see an upside for me as the subscriber, I'm out. And that's what's going to happen to for the most part. So in a sense, you give yourself this very limited time period to try to convert people. And if they don't convert, if they don't buy up front, you've probably lost almost all of them for good. That is short-sighted in my view, because there is a huge value to having someone on your list involved. If you're willing to take the slower kind of, I'm going to think of this as a journey. I'm going to not expect people to buy right away. I'm going to expect that I'm going to use this to connect with them, to build the connection, to maybe help them make the consideration or consider if I'm right for them, if my product is right for them, and then sell to them later. You will get more return on investment if you do it that way. Now, the other problem, and hopefully you're not doing this, but there are some people who don't do this sell up front, but they get people on their list and then they never email them until they're selling. And this is kind of another one of those problems that I will literally start getting emails from people. I'm like, who is this person? And I haven't heard from them in 6 months. And then all of a sudden I start getting all these emails. I'm like, well, I guess they're about to start selling something. And sure enough, they are. Guess what? I don't pay attention to them either. Because those people are, if literally the only time someone comes and tries to email me or talks to me is when they need something from me, I'm not going to be there. I use that. The analogy I think of for that is, what do you do if you have a friend, and I should use air quotes on friend there, who literally only calls you when they need something from you? At some point, you're going to stop answering their calls because they're not really a friend. And the same is true with email marketing. If the only time you're emailing your list is when you're trying to get them to buy something from you, in other words, when you're asking them for something, they're not going to pay attention, because what's in it for them? And why should they pay attention? Why should they be there? Why should they listen to you? So you have to not take that approach. So that's the other pitfall of people who maybe don't try to sell up front, but they also don't do the other work. So instead, you need to think of email as a journey. And I tend to think there's kind of 5 pieces or 5 parts in the journey until you get to the point of selling. And then there's also retention and things you'll do on the back end. But let's talk about this 5-step journey. The first thing is you're going to hook people with what I call a catch email. And I'm not going to go into the details of a catch email here. We have a blog post all about that. We'll have a link to that blog post in the show notes where we go through the catch structure. So catch is literally a structure. It's about congratulate them, acknowledge the pain or the struggle. This tells me about you, kind of you predict or say, hey, you downloading this tells me about you. There's a bit of a credibility boost, and then you hook them into your next email. And we go through that in that the blog post, which we'll link here in the show notes for anyone who's interested. But so that you get a sense, your catch email should be the delivery email. It's the email that you deliver the freebie with. You don't give them a freebie, an email that says, here's your freebie, and that's it. No. You go deeper, you develop value there. And part of what you're trying to do with that is build your credibility. And we're going to talk about this kind of part of the journey in the next podcast and next week's podcast. We're going to talk about this and some of the other stuff we're talking about here. But what you're trying to do is build trust in that email, because you've got to build that trust up before you're going to get anywhere. After the catch email, people should go into a nurture sequence. And a nurture sequence should be about helping them get value from the freebie they just downloaded to get on your email list. Again, this is about building trust. It's about establishing you as kind of the person who they should trust and they should listen to. So let's talk about kind of the inbound journey here. When they signed up for your email list, it was because they thought of you as a potential thought leader on this subject, or at least your freebie attracted them as a potential sign of someone who could help them as a guide on their journey. The catch email and your nurture sequence are really kind of cementing that. That's your goal with these two pieces of the catch email and your nurture sequence, which your nurture sequence will have, anywhere from 1 to 5 emails or so, depending on the kind of freebie you have. And it's not a hard rule. You might have more than 5, but you're trying to just cement that you are someone who can help them. So it's building a trust factor with them. Then after your nurture sequence, you want to take them into what's a welcome sequence. I call it the welcome sequence. Some people use different terminology, but in my world, we're going to call it a welcome sequence. This is an orientation into your world. In other words, this is about helping them understand who you are, what you stand for, how you can help them, and really help them get a sense of not just can you help them, but are you the kind of person that they want to get this help from? And what I mean by that, to be very simple, is I want people to know that if they're in my world, they're going to get snark. I'm not going to pretend that I'm just going to be this, straight-laced, buttoned-up, lawyer guy, because I'm not. So I want people to know that right away so that they can figure out, hey, do they like that or not? And they can make the decision whether they want to stick around. So this is kind of where we're shifting away from kind of just building trust into deeper connection of letting them get to know me and decide whether they like me. And that's what you're doing in your welcome sequence. Then after someone finishes your welcome sequence, now they're kind of oriented in your world. Hopefully at this point, you've built the know, like, and trust factor. And then you put them into your weekly emails, which is where you deepen the connection on a weekly basis so that people kind of ongoing start to get a deeper relationship with you or feel like they have a deeper relationship with you. And that's what you're trying to accomplish in those emails. And it's only after that you're going to theoretically be selling to people in promotional emails. Now, to be clear, sometimes you'll end up, just because of when people get on your list, that they'll start getting promotional emails right, right after they get a first couple of your weekly emails. You might be going into a promotion, so they're going to get that, and that happens. But the point is that by the time they're here, they've already been in your world for a while, and this is where you're going to sell in promotional emails. Now, for us, we send promotional emails kind of different times of the year, but it's not. I don't know. I would say that it's less than 20% of the emails we send are promotional emails. 80% of an email series that people are going to get from me are that other stuff, the stuff that comes before that. So that's the journey. Now, in the next 2 episodes, by the way, we're going to go deeper into this. So in the next episode, we're going to talk about everything before the selling. So we're going to talk about your catch email, your nurture sequence, your welcome sequence, and your weekly email. So we'll talk about that stuff in the next episode in more depth. Then in the 3rd episode here in this series, we'll talk about selling with email, using kind of emails to promote your products. But we have one more thing to talk about today, which is kind of the big concept of how should you approach writing your emails. And the big takeaway I want you to get is that you should think about your emails as a chance to build almost a friendship with your audience. You want your audience and the people on your email list, at least the engaged people, to think of you effectively as a friend, not as a marketer. Now, I'm not suggesting that people will forget that you are marketing to them. They will not. I tell people on my email list on a regular basis that, hey, I'm marketing to you and I will market to you. But if you approach email the right way, you can kind of bridge the gap. And I want to talk to you about why that's important. We've all heard about the power of word of mouth marketing, that people hearing from someone they know about a product are inclined to potentially buy that product. In fact, there have been study after study that show that a recommendation from a friend, a family member, or a colleague is way more powerful than any message from the company itself, whether it be an advertising message or a more general marketing message. So knowing that, my question to you is, why wouldn't you want to try to establish yourself in this kind of gray area where you're not just seen as the company that's marketing to people, but instead you're seen as a friend who happens to be marketing to people? If you can establish that kind of connection and that kind of relationship with people, people will be way more likely to buy. Now, there's a couple of things in that. I mean, number one, you have to recognize that you have to do this consistently. You have to be willing to sacrifice potential sales. You have to be willing to tell people, no, don't buy this. It's not right for you. You have to approach it very much like they are your friends and steering people like you would steer your friends. So, for example, I can give you plenty of examples of this. I've had cases in the past where people were going to buy either one of my products or buy something that I was promoting as an affiliate, and they asked me, I said, nope, you're not ready, don't buy. There's other times where people in my audience are thinking about like looking for an affiliate for something where I am an affiliate, and I say, look, you've already got my stuff, don't buy through me, you're not going to get value, buy from this person instead, because they'll be able to provide more value to you. There have been other times where people come to me for the legal stuff and they have very particular questions, and I can recommend a different lawyer who serves online entrepreneurs who I think, hey, given what you're dealing with, go to her. She's going to be able to serve you better because, there's one lawyer I can think of specifically who's was a healthcare lawyer before entering the space. And so if there are healthcare related questions about legal stuff, I'm like, she's going to know better than me. So doing things like that, again, I'm approaching my marketing like I would approach talking to a friend and helping and serving a friend. If you're willing to do that in your emails, you can really kind of build this rapport. Now, other than those types of examples, let's talk about some of the things that you need to do to kind of build this friendship through email. Now, one way to look at it is to simply ask yourself, how would I approach email? How would I write email if I were talking to a friend? And so there's a couple things to that. Number one, you should add your personality to your emails. If your emails look like something that anybody could have written, you're not doing it right. It should sound distinctly like you. So you should write how you talk. And I make this joke that sometimes you will read people's writing and they're writing in the King's English, but when you talk to them, you're like, man, you got run-on sentences, you've got fragments, you've got split infinitives, you've got all this, and it's a completely different thing. Ideally, if someone has heard you talk and then they read one of your emails, it should have the same cadence, it should have the same feel. They should literally be able to say, when I read your emails, I'm reading it in your voice. I'm hearing your voice in my head as I'm reading these emails. That's what you want. But it's also, you have to think about the content. You should share stories about your life. You should approach it like you would talk to a friend and tell them things about you. Now, I'm not saying you have to share the most intimate details about yourself. No, but you have to let people in. And this is something I've talked about quite frequently. I talk about my wife. I talk about my daughter in my emails. You know what I've never done? I've never mentioned their names in my emails. I've never done that because it's a preference of my wife that I don't do these things too much. But you know what? You get to know me and get to kind of sense and feel me as a friend through recognizing my relationship with the people in my life. So that's kind of how you have to do it. You have to let people get to know you. Again, if you want people to know, like, and trust you, now they can trust you as an authority figure, but if you want them to know you and like you, which is an important piece of connection and building this type of relationship where people will want to buy from you as a knowledge brand, you've got to let them get to know you. That means you've got to let them into who you are. That's through stories, personality, just doing the things that are uniquely you. So when you're writing emails as part of your email marketing strategy, you need to think about those things. You need to think about that piece. That needs to be your guiding principle as you're doing this. How would I write this email if I was writing it to a friend? If you ask that question, that becomes your approach, you'll be in good shape. So that's kind of that last piece that I wanted to talk about today as we're doing these basics. Now, again, all of the things we're talking about today and in the next couple of episodes, I go deeper in my Badass Email Marketing course. There's a lot of how-to, there's a lot of swipe copy, etc. So if you haven't joined BOMU yet, head over there, go to bobbyklink.com/BOMU. That will really help you to learn this stuff at a deeper level and really kind of, learn the nuts and bolts. But I wanted to give you this overview so you get where this stuff fits in. And I'm going to wrap up this episode. Now, next week, we're going to dive into email as a vehicle for connection. How do you connect with your people through email? Because that's one of its unique characteristics, in my view, that you're really able to build that connection. So you're not going to want to miss that episode. So that's it for this week. And I will see you again next week. We're going to dive into the first parts of the email marketing journey and helping you understand how to connect with your audience through email. I'll see you then. That's it for this episode of the Certified Badass Online Marketing Podcast. Make sure to tune in next time. And in the meantime, go out and build the badass business of your dreams.